So in this lesson, I want to talk about what actually makes an interesting character in your films. I've talked at a really high level way of talking about that you need a character who wants something, but let's go a bit deeper. And that's why you've signed up for this course, because we get to go deeper. I'm giving you guys as much information as I can. So it's like you're here in the room with me. So what makes a really good character? Well, there's a couple key traits you can be looking for. Not just that you've met someone who wants something, which is important. You need a character who wants something or else they're not really a character to follow. But there's a few more things you can be looking for. So the number one thing I would say that makes an interesting character in a documentary is obsession. When you can find someone who's been obsessed with something, they will make for a very fascinating character, because that obsession has derived from many different things that you can explore in the film. It could be because of their childhood, it could be some mental health that they're working through, it could even be the circumstances that they're living in that have driven them to this obsession. You think of great documentaries like Kings of Kong. Hey, I know I just called the film The Kings of Kong, but I want to give a little correction. It's actually The King of Kong, Fistful of Quarters. So in case you're trying to Google that, that's the name of the film, The King of Kong. Back to our tutorial. These guys were obsessed with playing the video game Donkey Kong, becoming the best players in the world, which made them very fascinating. Or I think of one of my favorite documentaries of all time, Transcendent Man, which follows the inventor Ray Kurzweil. And the film is looking at him trying to extend his life so that he can live forever. He's become obsessed with this, and this is because he didn't necessarily feel connected to his father in childhood. And so you see there's all these layers about these characters. So obsession, if you can find someone who is obsessed, you have a very interesting character. And if you can find someone who's obsessed and wants something, man, you have a winning combination for a documentary. This is why one of the most watched TV shows of all time on Netflix, Tiger King, works so well, because the main character was obsessed with being the Tiger King, with becoming famous and having this entire terribly run zoo around him with tigers so that he could be seen as the world's best tiger keeper, or whatever you want to call it. But he was obsessed. So find characters who have this trait. A number two trait you can look for in someone is a desire for evil or a desire for good. Both make for fascinating characters to explore in your documentary. You think of the film The Cove. You had two groups of people, one who we would maybe consider evil, who were killing dolphins in a very illegal, poaching-like manner. But the people we followed were the people who were trying to stop that, who were going to great extents, like to hide inside of rocks that were made by VFX teams so that they could take pictures and video what was happening in this cove. That is a great character, someone who is obsessed with good and evil. I think of Last Man in Aleppo. Here's a character who is one of the White Helmets, one of the medical workers in the Syrian war. He was obsessed with doing what he believed was good. And I would say also, regardless of what you think of that political situation, he was trying to help people who were being attacked by fighter jets in these explosions, in these IEDs, this incredible wartime situation. Here's a man who is, remember, obsessed with helping people to the point he was putting his own life in the way. And two, he was trying to fight for good. He was trying to do something good. You think of a film too, like The Act of Killing. This is a film where the main character, I think, maybe thought he was doing good, but the acts they were actually committing were very evil. And so this was, again, very interesting, fascinating characters to explore. And I feel bad, you have to understand, when I say fascinating and interesting about these terrible humanitarian issues, I'm not saying that they are there for entertainment, but when I say they are interesting, is it's compelling films that you want to pursue and that we should see. We should be able to delve into these topics. So reviewing that, obsessed and someone who's fighting for good and evil. Number three is look for someone who's had some unresolved issues in their life. Again, it feels like I'm kind of exploiting people in these dire situations, but if you're gonna take the time to create an incredibly long film, even a short film, you're going to be investing time into this. And I believe that documentaries should be a conduit for good. They should help people understand their world. They should help people understand people they don't know. For me, documentaries at their core are a tool for empathy, and I think empathy actually helps connect people a lot more. So if you're finding someone with an unresolved issue, maybe they're up against racial tension, maybe they're up against a family issue, this will help us walk in someone else's shoes, and I think that's an important part of documentary. So if you can find someone who is working through something that they haven't discovered, even the film like Icarus, The main character in that was working through an unresolved issue in that he was trying to become one of the fastest endurance athletes in the world and maybe potentially use these performance-enhancing drugs. But then he also met a scientist along the way, and I don't want to give away too much, but this scientist had a lot of unresolved issues he was working through. These make for more dynamic, more interesting characters. Number 4, this is a great one. It's a standard approach for documentary characters, is someone who has a unique talent or a unique trait. This is someone who has done something that we haven't actually heard of before. So a unique talent, you think of the film Man on Wire. This main character, I forget his name right now, but he wanted to tightrope walk between the trade towers. And you have to understand the trade towers at the time were some of the tallest buildings in the entire world. You find someone who has a unique talent and who's obsessed, that is a winning combination. Also, having someone who has a unique journey, something they're trying to accomplish that maybe never has been accomplished before, makes for an interesting documentary because we get to journey with someone and see something that we haven't seen before. It's always difficult to try and find something new in your film, but every person, every story has a perspective that we may have never heard before, but I encourage you to try to find ideas that don't sound familiar. And the number 5 point I would say for finding an interesting character is finding someone who has controversy surrounding them. This is the way a lot of Netflix documentaries have been going recently when you look at these unresolved murder films or people like the OJ Made in America, that series that I believe ESPN helped produce. These series go after the controversy in people's lives and they explore them. What drove them to commit these things in their lives? In some cases it's murder, in some cases it's forgery. Finding films around people who are controversial. You look at the Netflix series Dirty Money. This explores a lot of controversial companies, controversial people, people who have tension in their lives. And this is interesting because one, we like voyeuristic subjects. People want to know about stuff that they're not supposed to hear about or that maybe feels like it's unheard of or secretive. People like having stories where they get to feel like they're on the inside of a story of information. Now, if you're going to go down this route, work with the right people and get a lawyer on your film, because often people who are controversial are also very powerful and can sue your pants off. So be careful when going down this road. I don't make any disclaimers to pursue murderers or cases like that, but this is one thing that will help make for an interesting character. But with controversies, you don't necessarily have to have the character who's murdered someone or is on trial with a grand jury. You can find people who have smaller ideas of controversy, like maybe they were a sports player who no one understood at that time in their life. I think of the documentary, The Carter Effect. Vince Carter was a bit of a controversial basketball player at times in his career because he, was considered to maybe fake some of his injuries. I'm a Toronto Raptors fan. I don't need to get into his whole story, but there was a time that most of Toronto hated his guts, which is part of the reason why I watched it. I wanted to understand this man who we all disliked for a really long time. And, I've come around. I like you, Carter. You just retired. Bless your soul. You did a lot for the city of Toronto. So just to recap that, you want characters who are obsessed. You want to look for characters who have a big desire in their life for either justice or, on the other case, evil. It's good to understand both sides of the coin. You want to find someone who has unresolved issues. Maybe they are still looking to figure out the end of a murder case, something that's in their life or around their life that they are trying to pursue. And it doesn't have to necessarily be controversial. It can literally be that they're trying to find maybe their long lost twin or find their family if they're adopted. These are interesting stories. Number 4, you want to find someone who has a unique talent or a unique journey that they are pursuing. And number 5, finding someone who's controversial will make for an entertaining film because we want to understand people who are unlike us. We want to understand other people's journeys. I hope that helps for you guys finding what is an interesting character for a documentary.